Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesday, which is very different for the podcast. I know, not what you're used to seeing. Normally, I'm here on Fridays and I'm going out of your ears. This week, we're going a little bit different. We're going to have some fun. We're going to talk to you, as you know, Bama Beach Bum. He's sitting in the green room, just hanging out, getting ready to come on. We got a lot of great questions for him. Couldn't tell you how long this episode's going to go. It could be an hour. Could be longer, could be shorter. Let's hope on the latter. All right, or actually the earlier, former. All right, so I'm done flapping my jibs. If you're watching this, share it out because there's going to be a ton of knowledge dropped in this. It's going to get real. So you're listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. Let's get it. Man, that music gets me going. Pump it up, pump it up. All right, we're ready. Actually, this is exactly how it goes when I'm recording and you can't see me. I'm actually the exact same way. So music gets me going. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. It's going to be fun. So let's just stop flapping our jibs. Let's just get this on. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matthew Isbell, the Bama Beach Bum.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. One thing I forgot to include in this, I apologize. This episode is sponsored by The Sinker Guy. If you need any sinkers, you need supplies, go check out The Sinker Guy at www.thesinkerguy.com. All right, so you ready to play?
Yeah, let's do it, man. This is gonna be, this is new for both of us here. Like just rolling with this. I'm excited.
Yeah. So I've only seen you go live a couple times in the past, but it's not. You don't do it much.
No, if I understood it more, like, with social media, there's a lot of different things that help you grow. And I've done live streams. I don't really understand them completely. It's a great way to connect with your audience. Like if you already have an audience, you want to connect with them and grow those relationships, that's definitely a good thing to do. It's just there's so much to do. I mean, there's a million things you can do with social media. So it's really hard to keep up with everything.
Yeah. It's, the ultimate way to stay connected. And I mean, the live is fun. Like we do a live, Mike Smith and Smitty Surf Fishing Charters. Him and I do a live every Friday for the Panhandle Fishing Report. So we always get that opportunity. It's kind of like, all right, cool. We're used to this, but you can really interact with like what's going on. Hey, in Alabama, the bite was hot. Here in Navarre, bite was freezing. People starting to link in. So if you can get that opportunity to just talk, I mean, you can really make a difference. So,
oh yeah,
fun stuff. All right, so let's get into the first question. And I know a lot of these are going to end up being from old previous YouTube's episodes. That's okay. It's going to kind of link through. How did you end up in Alabama?
Well, I grew up in Alabama. I'm originally from Montgomery, Wetumpka. I say Montgomery because most people are unfamiliar with Wetumpka, unless you watched HGTV's Hometown Makeover, which that made Wetumpka famous. But we moved here to the Gulf Coast in 2012. So we've been here 10 years, and that was for my insurance job. I sold life insurance before I started doing all of this, and I was doing that for about 10 years. But there was nobody covering this area, this region, with my company at the time that I moved down here. And it wasn't like a necessity. I didn't have to move down here, but the wife and myself, my wife Courtney, we always wanted to move to the beach. It was an opportunity, and we felt like we could jump on that grenade and move to the beach.
Oh no, not that.
Yeah, I know. Darn. But yeah, we just took the opportunity. It's fortunately has turned out to be a fantastic decision, and a way that I earn my livelihood is through the beach and living here. So I couldn't be more grateful for making that decision.
All right. And selling life insurance, that's a tough gig.
Yeah, what I was in too, I don't know, not everybody's familiar with how life insurance works, but there's obviously different things you can sell and different ways you can go. I sold burial insurance, which was like it's a tough gig, man. I knocked doors in some of the places of town that you would be driving around with somebody that's familiar with the area and they go, "Hey, don't go to that area of town." That's where I went to sell life insurance. And I would walk up and down the street in these areas and knock on doors. I've witnessed 2 shootings. I've had guns pulled on me twice. I've been bitten by dogs 3 times, all from knocking on doors for life insurance sales. So you have to have thick skin for a lot of things in life, and YouTube is one of them. Or putting yourself out there on social media. I felt like the 10 years of life insurance sales and knocking on doors really prepared me pretty well for getting my name and my face dragged through the mud as you experience social media.
That truth right there. It's funny. I didn't know you did life insurance. I don't know why, but now I do, and it's even strange for me. So it's a weird parallel. So
Yeah.
I did Marine Corps recruiting duty. So I spent 3
That
years.
sells. That
Oh
sells.
yeah, selling, and people laugh at me when I say this, but I mean selling souls. I want to trade 4 to 5 years of your life for something. And I remember going to some places. I was out in LA. Compton was one of the few areas I got to go every now and again. And there was some definitely areas where it's like, all right, and only a couple times, like if you went to the sketch areas where you knew it was going to be questionable, you just put your whole uniform on and you just kind of walked, and you saw the Marine, they ran. They're like, no, man, I'm not joining. Like, oh, no, we talk. Come here. So yeah, I can only imagine for your side, because the runway and then the livelihood and making sure, I mean, that's your bread and how you're going to get through. So
yeah, it was tough. It was, and I'm stubborn. Like I should have got out of it a long time ago, but I put in. It was nearly 10 years. I got in it in '09. Like that's when I first started selling life insurance, and then I didn't stop until I went full time guiding in 2018. So, I mean, it was almost a solid 10 years.
Solid.
Of torture.
It's all right. We're all glutton for it. What's
Yeah.
I should be loyal to the nightmare of my choosing, I believe it is.
That's right.
All right. So, what got you into fishing, and where did you start?
My family didn't fish. My dad didn't fish. Brother, I'm the youngest of 6, and I've got 4 older brothers and a sister. And none of my family was remotely interested in the outdoors. And the only people in my life that fished and were involved in the outdoors were a lot of my friends. And that's kind of what piqued my interest in fishing back home in Wetumpka. So it was freshwater fishing. I did a lot of brim and catfish and crappie and of course bass fishing. And without having someone in my life to really pass on information other than my friends and their parents or dads mostly, teaching me how to fish, I remember, I can see these images. We had a section in our library at school that was about fishing, and I would check out these books religiously, and these images are ingrained in my brain because this was, I was probably, when I really started taking interest to it, I was probably 10 to 12. So we're talking over 20 years ago now. That was before any of this information on the internet was even I mean, the internet existed, but to the degree that it is today, there was no social media. There was hardly any info out there. So the only way to get good information was still encyclopedias, which I used, and checking books out in the library is what I had to do. So I remember, which sounds so old, makes me sound so old. I mean, it sounds like so long ago, but 20 years ago, that's not that long ago. I guess it is. But I remember checking out these books to learn how to tie knots and rig properly for catfish and for bass and for brim, and that was how I educated myself. And that was a large portion as to why I started my YouTube channel, because nobody really taught me how to fish other than it was a difficult learning curve for me. And I knew as a kid, if I had access to information online to be able to do this stuff, I would have been all over it as a 10, 11-year-old kid.
Yeah. The Encyclopedia Britannica was a wonderful infomercial that, Mom, we got to get it.
I don't know which one's I remember we had a set of encyclopedias growing
Did
up.
you?
And that's what we used for all our reports and all that stuff. That was Google. I can't remember if it was I don't whether weren't there more brands or
Oh, there were
Britannica.
so many. I mean,
Yeah.
there was even traveling encyclopedia salesmen.
Yeah,
There were
right. Yeah. Yeah.
Britannica had the market share, I think, because they were able to get on TV. Um, but there was definitely other ones out there.
Well, that's
Wow,
how I used to learn to fish, and learn stuff. I digress, but
man, we're not. I mean, we're not that old, but dang,
I know it feels so old. Yeah, I'm
I
34, but I mean, that was 22 years, 22, 20, 24 years ago. That's a decent amount of time. Lots
oh,
changed.
a little. Okay. Well, so you've been doing a lot of fishing growing up there by learning through that process, and you made it work. And now you graduated up. What brought you to the surf?
So, I kind of like in my life, I got out of fishing. I wasn't fishing at all as an older teen and early adulthood, just focusing on life. I fished very occasionally, probably like most people that have regular jobs and normal lives. You fish when you can. Unlike me, I fish every day. But you know, I'm fortunate in that. So it was just a very loose thing. But right before we moved down here in 2011, for that entire year, I bought a boat back home and got a little bit more. Like anytime I had time off from work, I would go fishing, and so it kind of reignited my passion for it and desire to learn more about it and get better at it. And then we sold the boat and moved down here. And once we moved here, I just knew that with salt water, there's just so much potential. I didn't know junk about it, but I knew that there were a lot of opportunities, and we live around so much water. And I didn't have my boat, so I would try to access the water any way I could, whether that be from piers or on the side of the road or whatever, and just trying to learn. And where I started to have the most success, where I started to actually catch fish at all, was on the beach in the surf. And so that's really what I started to gravitate towards, was surf fishing. And I started to try to continue to educate myself and look for more information. And there wasn't a lot of information out there on the internet. I really started diving deep. I created my YouTube um, profile in 2014. Like if you look at my channel, it'll say that it was created in 2014, because that's when I started my profile. That's not when I started my channel, but that's when I opened my profile. And that's when I really started to try to educate myself on saltwater fishing, and more specifically surf fishing. But that information was not there. It is now.
Thank you for that, by the way.
Well, it's not just me. I mean, I was when I started the channel, it wasn't there. I went a few years that it was pretty much just me. Now, I mean, you can flip through YouTube and find a dozen pretty easily. There's a lot of surf fishing YouTube channels, and a lot in this area specifically.
Well, you are definitely one of the pioneers in it, and then we got others that are doing it as well, and almost all of them bring great knowledge that
Sure.
I think we couldn't ask for better. Like for me, my story was, I was sitting on the couch in Tennessee when it came around, and we had just come off the road from being in the RV for 2 years. So it's a whole different world. We're living in my mother-in-law's house because we sold everything. All we're living is the RV. And one night, somehow, going down a YouTube hole, I ended up on fishing, and then it ended up in surf fishing. And it was you and Tony were the top two that I started ping-ponging back and forth from.
Sure.
And I was like, what is surf fishing? I mean, I was stationed out of Camp Pendleton in California. We were right on the beach. The Marine Corps is always by water. We're amphibious. That's our thing. And I think I fished 3 times the entire 17 years I was stationed out there.
It's disappointing. There's a lot of opportunities out there.
Huge opportunities. And I kick myself every day now, like, you're an idiot. You missed out on so much. But then I started seeing it, and then started getting knowledge from both of you guys, which then turned into Brandt, Brad, running right through the whole circle. And it's like, okay, this is a ton of knowledge. Yeah. So the YouTube world has definitely proved, definitely to me, but I've seen it now after running this podcast for a while, and especially running panhandle surf fishing with the guys and getting out fishing with everybody. That piece of knowledge has made so many people have a learning curve that's almost streamlined. If you
Right.
follow these ones, you're gonna have a good day. So
Sure.
you've seen it, you know it, you've seen how that's run. And again, I will say thank you because you and others have made it easy for almost all of us to surf fish. So there.
Yeah, and it's so accessible surf fishing. It was the most accessible when I first moved here, and
Yeah.
that's why I gravitated towards it. You don't have to have a boat. You don't have to have a lot of money. It doesn't matter your life situation. You can get into it very easily. And the thing about it, when I don't hear this at all anymore. I can't remember the last time I heard this, but when I first started, and especially when I was guiding and started guiding full time, so many people would say, I didn't even know you could catch fish at the beach. Everybody
Yeah.
thinks you got to go way offshore. There's no fish here right up next to the beach, but the opportunities and amount of species and the ways that you can target them, it's endless. I mean, there's so much opportunity, but for the longest time, and I'm sure there's still plenty of people that don't understand that, but I just used to hear that so much that they're like, I didn't even know you can catch them. But I think we've educated people a lot now that more people are more familiar that there's a huge opportunity on the beach.
Yeah. Well, since you started fishing back then to today, what has been your most memorable catch in the surf?
I'll give you two.
Okay.
And one of them happened fairly recently, but the one that stands out the most is for me is probably the first time I caught a Jack Crevalle, and this was several years ago. It happened on my channel. I think it was either 2017 or 2018. I can't remember, but I was with my wife and we were catching bluefish. The water was super muddy, and I was throwing a top water, and we were just whacking bluefish, and all like it was bluefish after bluefish after bluefish, and I was trying to get her to hook up on one, and I was still throwing the top water, and something just exploded. It was slick calm that day. I mean, not there was no swells whatsoever, no wind. It was middle of summer, so you could see any movement on the water. It was just dirty, but it just erupted and just took off. And I was using a trout rod. I had like a 7-foot rod with a 3,000 size spinning reel and like 15-pound braid.
Oh no.
Not throwing for Jack Crevalle. And this thing just takes off. And I at the time I'm like, I have no clue what I just hooked. I mean, I went through the possible scenarios. I'm like, Jack was top of the list. I'm thinking, maybe it's Jack. I never caught one, but I was just familiar. But experiencing catching a Jack Crevalle, because they're my favorite fish now. That was the first time I'd ever caught one. They're my number one fish. If anybody ever asks me, what's your favorite fish to catch, it's going to be a Jack Crevalle. I get weak kneed anytime I see them, whether it be in the pier, on the beach. Like I legit almost collapse because I just get so amped up about seeing these fish and the opportunity to catch one. And this was the first experience, and it was totally unexpected. So I would point to that. Like that really just, I mean, I was already in love with surf fishing, but that just is when it really just everything came together, and I'm bonded for life with surf fishing.
Okay.
Like what's that movie? Avatar. When they like how do they word it, like bonded or something. Yeah,
Mhm.
we like me and surf fishing made it together. We are one. From that moment.
A little bit of imprinting going on. Got
That's right. That moment solidified it for me. But probably no. I said I was going to give you two. Probably my number two would be catching. I just caught my personal best pompano, which pompano obviously being like the primo species for surf fishing, but not the fact that I just caught my biggest one ever, but I was able to do that on a jig, and that was a special moment for me, and probably just really something I've been trying to do for years is to catch a pompano of that quality. And even through all my guiding and my personal fishing and fishing with friends and everything that I've done, I've never seen a pompano personally in person, I've never seen a pompano over 4 pounds until that one, and it was 4.5, and on artificial. I mean, yeah, I can't beat it.
You did it on a jig. Were you on a pompano jig, goofy jig, or whatever?
Yeah,
Banana
yeah,
jig?
yeah. You can call it whatever, goofy jig, banana jig, wacky jig, whatever you want to call it. All those names apply. It was a Frisky Fins jig, and I had a little teaser on it. It was pink, and to do it like I was feet on the sand. It wasn't jigging the jetties or from a boat, or because I've done all that for pompano fishing, but to actually feet on the sand, fishing a legit beach, catch a PB pompano on like just special moment for me.
Yeah. I mean, because when we're always fishing, if we're doing set rigs, and we're getting further into the questions here, and I'll get to that one eventually.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're doing zone fishing, so you've got the long ones, getting them way out there. You're getting behind the bar, and you're playing different markers. But you're normally on the further side. You're not normally catching them jig distance that often. But to do that, that's primo right there.
He was close to the, or she, I think probably was close to the beach. I mean, it wasn't that far out, so
Yeah.
very special. And when I hooked it, I thought it was a red because of how it hit it and took off, and just the weight of the fish. I'm like, oh, this is probably a red. And then no, it wasn't. And I freaked out, a little bit, lost for words. Anytime I get where I can't speak, and I don't even know what to say.
Yep.
That's a special moment.
Yeah, hands down. All right, so the big question with that then is, did she hit the teaser or did she hit the jig?
The jig.
She didn't hit the teaser on the way down.
Just the jig. The way I tie my teasers, they're not separate. It is
You put it on the one loop?
Yeah, I put them on the loop, so they're kind of right there.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. Now a lot more, because the goofy jig I think is becoming something bigger. Yeah, I'm starting to see more of it. I know James is with Frisky Fins. He's talked about it. We actually talked a little bit about it last night when we recorded our episode. But he was talking about those and how big things it really helps there. So well played, sir. Well played.
It's a great lure. Great lure.
Well, you kind of took my other question and nailed it. My next one was going to be, what was your all-time favorite catch or most memorable catch? So I'm guessing it was the jack. So we'll just scoot on by that question now.
Yeah. I mean, I can give you one more. I'll give you a top three. So I'll give you two. Yeah, I'll give you one more. So when I was before YouTube, like this was when I was still trying to figure everything out. This was probably sometime around. I'm sorry, my dog is moving. I don't know if you can hear my dog.
Mine are right out the window staring at me.
If you see me looking away, my she's like trying to get a ball over here. So I'm sorry, I'm distracted.
All good, brother. All good.
And I know we're live here, but the number, like what before Jax, before YouTube, before I was in any way, shape, or form trying to make this a career, I was at the beach with my wife, and I was using one of those Guggen rigs, like what we could talk about. That's where a lot of people start. To think of myself using that stuff, makes me sick, but I did, and I caught some fish. I had some success with it, but I probably had killer bee bait from Walmart. I don't even know, but I had some terrible bait, and I was fishing the beach in Orange Beach, and I caught my very first redfish from the beach, and first redfish period, but it was from the beach. And this was probably, I'd have to say 2014, 2015, and that catch, because that was at the time, that was the biggest fish I'd ever caught. I mean, it was like a bull red, probably over 30 inches. I didn't measure it, didn't know to. But catching my first redfish definitely gave me the realization that saltwater fishing can give you so much more than freshwater fishing in terms of opportunity from that standpoint. And just I had never caught anything that fought like that, and up until that point, and that was definitely another moment that pointed me in the direction of surf fishing and making what we have today a reality.
So that was the engagement. The jack was the wedding.
Yeah, that was great. We were just courting at the time with the redfish, but we are eternally bonded with Jack.
Totally fair. I get it. So you spent a while guiding. You've talked about that, and we know we've seen that one from before. What was the most difficult part of that side of the business?
Challenges. The thing about surf guiding is you are present every day, like every day it's something you've got to overcome. And that's with any job. But if I think about, because guiding in general is tough, like extremely hard. And the guys I would say on the boat have it harder. But an advantage that they have is they can get around and do things to circumvent obstacles a lot easier than somebody on the beach.
Mhm.
You can just There's a lot of days that you can still run your trips regardless of how difficult customers may be and all these other things that are difficult, but you can still at least run your trips most any day and avoid certain things, whether it be dirty water or wind or a bad bite or whatever. You can just you have way more selections of places to go and fish. When you're running surf fishing trips, whatever those obstacles are, you don't have a lot of options, and your options that you do have are all bad. I mean, so whether it be from seaweed, dirty water, bad winds, rough surf, bad weather, some of those things again, a boat charter is going to run into, but they can avoid a lot of that in a lot of ways, and that you can't on a beach, and that's just tough. And two, like when you go and set up at a spot and you think ahead, you pre-plan, you try to figure out where's going to be the absolute best place to crush fish. And of course you're fishing every day, so that helps. You have a real good finger on the pulse of like where fish should be and where they are. But if you show up and you set up your surf fishing spread and everything at a spot and it's just not happening, you can move down the beach a little bit. You can try that, which that in and of itself is difficult. It's not
Yep.
easy to, because you still have to pack everything up and walk 100 yards, whatever it may be. That takes time. But even after you try that, or if you think, man, we probably should go to a different beach altogether because water conditions or whatever, that's an hour, like, of time. So if you want to pack everything up, get in your car, drive down the road, unload, reset up, you've got an hour of time now that you're killing. And what and that and these are decisions you have to make as a surf fishing charter. Am I charging them for this, or is this like, are we getting an additional hour, or like it's a difficult thing to think through, and it stresses you out. Conditions, I would say, because I mean, and then you got hurricane freaking season, and the last few years of our hurricanes. I mean, you've got tropical systems coming in every time, and that's going to knock you out for a week, maybe two, because you've got obviously terrible conditions, and then after that you got dirty water, and you can go run catfish charters if you want, but not too many people are interested in that. So just conditions. I mean, June grass is going to be coming in. Obviously we're crushing pompano right now, and it's awesome, but before you know it, here we go, June grass, sargassum. It's one thing after the next, that you're constantly trying to work around and figure out and still run trips and still make money and still catch fish. It can be difficult. So guiding is a tough business. It is. I salute those who continue to do it. I did it for 3 years full time. It's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, this is the perfect time for this. Ladies and gentlemen, it is about 20, we're at 28 minutes. We're a couple minutes late. I apologize, and I don't have my fun little sound effects there, but this is the first bait check. So if you're listening to this, if you're watching at the beach, that's even better, because hopefully you've been paying attention to this and not your rods bouncing. And if you have, you're able to come back. But this is your first bait check today. So go out there, check your bait, reel it back in, make sure it's all good. If you need to retip it, send it back out there. This bait check was brought to you by Ninja Tackle. And if you want to get looking at rods, rigs, reels, they've got it all in there. So go ahead and head over to ninjatackleva.com. Take a look at all the fun stuff that they've got there. You can't go wrong, really. We'll get to that part too, because I have more.
We love Ninja Tackle. I love Ninja Tackle.
Yeah, hard not to.
Nah.
So we've hit the hard part of guiding. What's the most rewarding part of guiding, though?
Most definitely taking out people that have extremely low expectations. Those are the best, because when they because sometimes you take people that they just want to go and have a good time, and they're not expecting to crush fish. They just want to have the experience, and a lot of the times those people have no preconceived understanding of what your potential is on the beach, and just catching fish in general for them is a blast. And those trips were always the most rewarding when you have somebody that's showing up like, man, we just want to hang out, we don't really care, and then you actually catch fish. It just everybody wins, it's just a lot of fun. It's tough running those trips where people want to just load a cooler. Of course, the cool thing about beach fishing and surf guiding is a lot of times this is most people's first introduction to saltwater fishing. It's inexpensive. It was less expensive to charter me than a boat or whatever. So it's just an easy way for a lot of people to access saltwater fishing. And most of the time, you have a legitimate shot of that person catching the biggest fish that they will probably ever catch in their life. And that happens so many times, whether it even be a stingray, black drum, redfish, jacks, whatever. There's a really sharks, we caught a lot of sharks. People can catch that absolute monster that they're going to talk about for the rest of their life. And that's going to be a moment they point to in their life, and you got to be a part of that. So that was cool. A lot of people probably answered that with kids, and I love kids. I got a kid, but if we're all honest, it's tough fishing with kids, man. Like, I love it, and I'm glad that they're out there, and I want to teach them. It's important to me. It's important to my daughter. But those were challenging times. Obviously they had a good time, and that was always a stressful thing. But I would point to the other two than getting kids out there on the water. I'm going to be straight on with you, man. It was tough. It was tough. And it was expensive because they would break stuff. They'd drop stuff in the sand. And I'm too nice of a guy. I'm too nice. Obviously some people are like, you charging for it. I'm too nice. I'm like, oh, it's fine. And I'm thinking, oh gosh,
Like you're crying inside. Like,
that's totally rude. Because here's what happens. Here's what happens on the beach. I'm going to paint this picture. And if you surf guide, this is exactly what happens. So you're on the beach, kids, reeling in a rod, whether they're doing it with a fish or they just think there's a fish, and you've told them 100 times, hey, there's no fish on that, but it doesn't matter. They just want to reel it in, and that's okay, whatever. Keep reeling it in. So they got a rod in their hand, they're reeling in, and then a rod actually goes off. What do you think is the next step? Exactly. That rod is like 100 miles an hour going to the ground, and they're going to the rod that has a fish on it every time without fail. Doesn't matter how much you tell them, hey, always put the rods in the rod holder. We don't want to put these in the sand. Doesn't go in the sand or the water. It doesn't matter where they're standing. They got a rod in their hand, fish on, it's going on the ground every time.
Yep. Yep. Oh, bringing my anxiety.
I love kids, and I'm so glad that they're. And you know what? And I'm excited to get my daughter introduced to it. But those are definitely. I don't have any moments that stick out in my brain of great moments. But but catching people's biggest fish, that was special. Always special.
Cool. Moving into the YouTube world, we've talked a little bit about it. So, and I know you've talked about it, but I think it's important when we start here because it's going to move into an obvious piece. What made you want to start the YouTube channel? So I know the education piece, we started there. We got that covered. Was there anything else with that though?
Yeah. So when I started it in 2017, it was a tough phase of life for me. My wife was pregnant. Annalise had not been born yet. She was born in like November 1st of 2017. And I started the YouTube channel, I think August. So it was like kind of close to the time that she was about to be born. And insurance had not been going well. At the time, I was still kind of selling insurance, but I had already begun looking for other things, and nothing had really panned out. And so looking at YouTube, I noticed, number one, that I was looking for this information on surf fishing that was not there at the time because I wanted to educate myself on surf fishing. So I saw an opportunity with that. And also I had seen a lot of people, or what seemed like a lot of people, being somewhat successful. Brandt being one of them, Anglerup with Brandt and Yak Motley, both at the time were the two largest YouTubers in this area. And not only them, but Deer Meat for Dinner, a lot of these guys in the outdoor industry that had decent channels and seemed to be doing well and making money. I understood enough about YouTube to know that you could make money off of it. So I remember telling my wife when I started filming, I was like, if I can just in a year or two, if I can just start paying our rent with this endeavor, it'll be a win, because I'm already fishing. I already love fishing. The information's not there. I'm going to be doing it anyway. I'm going every weekend and every opportunity that I get. I'm just going to carry a GoPro with me and film it. I'm going to put it on the internet. And if I can earn a little bit of income to help pay some bills, great. So it was definitely like, it was a hopeful thing that eventually I could turn it into something. I didn't know what. I didn't know exactly where it would go or where I would end up, but I knew I could make a little bit of money. So that was definitely in a hard time of life. We needed the money bad in that period, in that phase of life. So that was definitely a motivating factor.
All you need is a little spark, right?
That's right. That's right.
Has doing YouTube made you a better angler?
Absolutely, man. You got to think, how many people on this planet are full-time, and I've transitioned to a lot of things, but obviously a heavy focus on surf fishing and beach fishing and land-based saltwater fishing. How many people on this planet are full-time surf fishermen that earn an income? Not many, and a step further, most of those you're going to find in the commercial side of things, where they have a focus on certain things or whatever, whereas me as a recreational angler, I can approach it from a recreational standpoint, so versus a commercial. So how many recreational anglers are full-time land-based saltwater fishermen? It's a very small amount of people. There's not very many, and I've been able to fortunately do this for, it'll be 5 years in August, where I've started my YouTube channel. I went full time guiding in the spring of 2018. So since then, since spring of 2018, I've been full time fishing, and with a heavy extreme focus on surf fishing. And that amount of time and hours over the last 4 or 5 years, that's hard to match, from anybody, because, and that's the thing, like, there's still a ton I don't know, obviously, like learning so much. There's so much to learn about fishing and all that. And that's the thing, like, I love, and that's why I said I've gone so many different directions, because I want to learn as much as I possibly can about all different styles and techniques. But a lot of what I do and a lot of what I've seen and experienced has been around surf fishing. And I get these comments and these people that are experts all the time, and they try to throw the weight around of how many years they've been surf fishing or whatever it may be. And I'm like, that's great and that's awesome. You may have been surf fishing whatever for 50 years, but I'm probably pretty close to the amount of hours of time that you have on the water if you're a recreational angler. It's I catch up really quick when I'm out there as often as I am, and so but with that amount of time and hours that I've been able to put in, if I'm not learning and growing, then I don't know. I don't know how you don't. I mean, that with just that amount of time with anything, and on top of that, even the time that I'm not on the water, I'm doing podcasts. I'm creating content ideas. I'm doing this. I mean, it is a literal living breathe. Like if I'm alive and not sleeping, it's pretty much fishing. So it's a lot of time. So yes, absolutely. There, when I first started YouTube, I mean, I was as green as they come. I mean, I knew a tiny, tiny, tiny bit, and it was the approach that I took. And even still, like you will still hear me say so many times, I don't know what I'm doing because I constantly want to learn and do new things. But the approach I took when I started my YouTube channel with surf fishing was learn with me. Like this information is not out there. I'm new to this. I want to learn this stuff and put it on the internet. Here it is. Watch me learn this process. Fortunately, I have learned a lot, but like I still do like pier fishing, for example. Last year was really my first year to go heavy, hardcore into pier fishing, and I'm straight up and honest about that. Like, look, I don't know what I'm doing. I need to learn. I'm willing. I'm an open book. I'm trying to learn and glean as much as I can from people that I respect as anglers and fishermen, not necessarily people that I find in my comment section, but people people that I know. Yeah, I get some really good comments, and
You do.
the people listening and watching this right now are probably the people that actually comment good stuff and actually good information. But there's so much bad in the comments, like just bad information, and just they have no clue what they're talking about. That I mean, that's a large percentage of that. So yeah, I mean, I love to learn, and I'm willing to accept good information from people that I respect and that I know have been there and know are where I want to be as an angler. Always willing to listen and learn. And the most important thing with anybody, especially if you're starting a YouTube channel, is just be honest. Just be honest with where you are in your journey, and be upfront. If you don't know what you're doing, it's okay. It really is. I mean, it's really okay to not know and be honest and say, hey, look, I'm just out here having a good time, and maybe you can pick something up.
Well, that trophy over your left shoulder kind of states what, a little testament of your eternal student status. So, and I will, I'll be no, that thing, that little guy. Yeah.
That one, is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, that little guy. Don't worry about that little guy. Yeah, that one. Congratulations on that, by the way. That was
Thank
awesome.
you.
And I'll be the bad guy. Why not? This is the fun part.
Sure, bring it, man.
You're right about the bad information, because there are some people I think that go through the comments, and those are my friends that know me. What one part I'm about to say. Like, I hate it when I see somebody do, hey, what fish ID is this? And the first friggin' comment is snook candy.
Oh yeah.
I see it, and I'll admit, I wholeheartedly admit, I see that in panhandle surf fishing. I don't pause. You're deleted. Instantaneous, no questions asked. That's because those are the people that I know are going to give you the absolute worst advice, because they think it's funny that they're going to see you go out there with a Walmart rig and a 5-ounce Sputnik that you spent your money on, and you're going to cast it and you're going to snap it, and they're going to go, oh yeah, look. It's like, okay, I'm all for messing with people and hazing in a workplace and with friends, but somebody that's brand new to this, sorry, not sorry. I want that person to succeed. I want them to know, hey, it's okay. You're gonna fail. You're gonna have crap days. We do not catch these fish every chance we get. We may say we do.
Yeah, and that's the thing I've never understood. People, I see it in these groups and stuff all the time. People asking for a fish ID, and they post a pompano, and they're like, what's this fish? And people give them a hard time, make fun of, well, not your group, but groups in general, Facebook groups or social media in general. It's like, there was a time in my life that wasn't that long ago. At least it doesn't feel like that long ago. I didn't know what a pompano was. I remember the first time I even encountered a pompano. This was before we had moved down here. So, we moved here in 2012. So sometime before that, we were just vacationing here, Gulf Shores, and this guy was set up on the beach fishing beside us, and he was just catching fish after fish after fish. And I walked down there, and I was like, "Hey, man, you seem to really know what you're doing. What kind of fish are you catching?" I was one of those guys walking down the beach asking, and he was about to tell me, and it wouldn't matter. He could have said largemouth bass, and I'd be like, "Oh, okay." I don't know what you're catching right now. But he goes, I'm catching pompano. And I'm like, okay, cool. I don't know what pompano is, but it's cool. And he showed me the bait and all that. And at the time, I'm sure it had to be Fishbites, because he was like, in my mind, the way that he described it, I can't remember what the wording he used, but he was like, it's this ball of something and it releases scent. I don't know. He might have been using magic bait or something. I don't know, but it probably Fishbites would be my guess.
Okay.
But this was probably 2010, 2009. I mean, that doesn't. I mean, I guess it's been a little while ago now. It doesn't sound like that long ago, but we all start somewhere. That's my point. Like, you don't know everything. I mean, and there's still species that like. You could post a picture and I'd be like, I have no clue what that fish is. Now I know a lot more now, but we all start somewhere and we forget that. And I hate to see it when people give people a hard time, because we want these people in the sport and getting their families involved in the sport and being able to enjoy the resource like we do.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny when you get in the text groups. Like I'm in one. I think I was in Canaveral. Caught a fish, didn't know what it was, and I texted in, and it was Justin and Mike from Smitty's Surf Fishing Charters, Justin Reed with his YouTube channel, and I'm like, hey guys, what is this? And I like the pause, I can see the bubbles, and all I can think is, man, the response, it took a little longer, and I'm like, am I about to get messed with? And like, dude, that's a bluefish. How do you not know what a bluefish is? I got one. This is cool.
Yeah, you don't know. You gotta learn. You gotta learn somehow.
Thankfully, there's some new stuff that's come out. And they're not sponsoring. I'm just going to plug it anyway because they're really very helpful. FishRules, the app on your phone, has become really helpful at identifying fish. They just added a feature where you can send it in. You got to pay, but you can send it in. And I believe Google just updated their, what is this app? But either way, it's the Google Identify one. It's gotten better at identifying fish. So
okay. I'm unfamiliar with those, but sounds helpful.
Anything to make it easier, because it's sad. Well, you already took away my next question, so I don't even need to ask that one. Let's move into your actual fishing styles then. Okay. When you're planning to fish, what is your normal plan or routine?
So for step one, like I'm going through this process already for tomorrow. I'm trying to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to target? Anytime I'm pre-planning for a trip, I always start with the app Windy. Great app, really accurate from my experience. And I'm going to look at it and I'm going to look at a few things. Number one being the wind. Wind is always like, what's going on with the wind? Because that's going to determine whether or not I'm in a kayak. That's going to determine whether or not I'm fishing on my feet inshore somewhere, whether or not I'm actually going to attempt the beach. Wind is always numero uno. Like, even if it's raining and storming, I know most of the time I can work around that. Right. But if it's going to be blowing 20, 25 miles an hour out of the east, I need to know that information. So I can make decisions whether to stay home and sleep or go. But yeah, trying to decide, definitely looking at wind. Then I'm going to look at surf conditions, what the swells are, how rough I think it is based on the wind and the wind direction and the swells and the timing. Because if I can beach fish, I'm probably going to try that in most scenarios. Obviously, time of year, big factor there. What I'm aware of should be my opportunities. Then I'll look at the weather from there just to see, okay, what weather windows do I have? Does it look like it's going to be raining in the morning, afternoon, at all, whatever? And then I'm going to try to go ahead and rig up for however I want to approach it. Tomorrow, I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but it's looking like a day that I'm probably going to approach things with artificial from the beach and attempt that, because we're getting into that season now where you have a lot more opportunity at species in the surf. We just came out of winter, we got spring. Now we're getting all, the redfish and the trout and the flounder. And of course, still got pompano and bluefish and all this stuff that's moved into the surf now. So targeting them different ways instead of just set rig fishing is always something that I would like to do, because artificial, you can go approach it so many different ways with so many different lures and tactics and everything. That's what I always want to do, but whether or not conditions and time of year allow will determine that.
That's fair. I mean,
my favorite, big jacks. We're getting close to, like, they're here, they're around. They're not real, like in the middle of summer, you can throw a popper and they'll destroy it. You might get one on a popper right now, but they can be a little bit more finicky in the spring. So it just depends. I look at time of year and conditions, and There's a lot of directions you can go. That's the fun part, though. You know, and figuring out. Like I love to figure it out, and I love implanting myself in places that I've never fished before and trying to figure it out. Like that. That's what excites me, and what I feel like makes good content is winging it and just trying to use your knowledge that you've gained about fishing and inserting that in a completely unfamiliar environment and trying to see if you can be successful at catching fish. I think that's
Kind of,
the most.
kind of talking about Mexico there.
Mexico is a great example.
That
And
was fun.
and my next one, yeah, and I didn't catch a lot, but that's the thing, you know, like when I make these videos and I get hashed, you know, people beat me up about it sometimes, and I got a lot of hate from a lot of people. You know, not my normal subscribers and stuff. They enjoy it, but like people that are just passing by a video, and they're like, you know, this, all you did was catch some jacks. You went all the way to Cabo to catch jacks, but it's like you don't understand. Like I'm totally implanting myself in a completely unfamiliar environment. I know nothing. I'm not with a guide. I got no information. I literally just look at a map and like, I can catch fish here. Yeah, like I mean that's it. I don't know anything. I'm figuring it out. So I was happy with my jacks. But I'm doing the same thing with I'll be going to Cape Cod in 3 weeks. I'm going with Matt and John from Ninja Tackle. They're going to meet up with me out there. But same scenario, like they don't know anything about that area. They've never fished. Me either. I know jack about it. So I put myself in these situations that my subscribers find themselves in, because a lot of the people obviously that come to my channel are trying to get information on a particular area, like around here and how to catch fish and what time of year and all this stuff. I put myself in those situations, so I understand what they go through. I mean, I get it when they're trying to get as much information from me as possible, but I enjoy that process of just trying to figure things out on my own and try to have some levels of success. Because if I go to Cape Cod and I catch a striper that's you know this big from the beach, I'm gonna be so jacked. I've caught striper before. I've caught fish from the beach, but I've never caught a striper with my feet on the sand. I don't care how big the thing is. That's gonna be a success because I went there with no knowledge, no information. I'm not chartering anyone or whatever. Like it's something I did on my own and I figured it out and I had success. I will be so stoked about that fish. That comes through in my videos. Like when anything happens like that, that's new for me, which is a lot. I'm always trying new stuff or a new area, even if it's the same fish I've caught 100 times. If it's in a new area, you get this hate on social media. Like, why are you so excited about a 20-inch striper? You know, I've caught one this big, you know, all this stuff. But it's like, you don't understand. Like I'm putting, like, you don't know what I went through to catch the striper, you know?
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I don't do a good enough job of communicating that. I don't know. But that's why I get so excited, because every fish I catch, I'm always like, I can't believe this worked. I can't believe I caught a fish. Like even if it's a fish I've caught 100 times, but you know, changing things up and constantly trying new ways to target the same fish or new areas to target the same fish, it always presents challenges and difficulties. And if you can overcome that and be successful as an angler, I think that's a big deal. And I get excited about it.
Not bad.
Sorry, I go off on some tangents here, you know, because I get so many comments and things and that irk me sometimes. I'm like, you know, I want to come through the screen sometimes and be like, look, you don't know what I'm doing. You don't understand what I've put myself through to have this success in this video. But
you just did.
I'm trying to tell you now.
Hey, I mean, I've been known to run on at the mouth. There's a reason. Like amongst my friends, I'm like, all right, I got to stop flapping my jibs. Like, I tell myself, like, I'm happy, I'm rolling.
Yeah.
So, no, but I think it's great you just did that because in reality, you just gave a perspective that a lot of people probably have never thought ever when they've seen your videos. They've never put themselves in your shoes for what you just did to accomplish what you accomplished. So that's not a tangent, man. That's real. So hell, I mean, I'm loving you did it because I love real. It is what it is. Let it run.
Right. Yeah. I'm just being honest, man.
Yeah, man. So, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we are at 54 minutes. It is now for your second bait check. So you need to reel that line in again and check your stuff and get it back out there. You don't want to miss those fish. Fresh bait does great things. Fishing on credit means you ain't catching at all. Ask me how I know. Been there. This bait check was brought to you by Smitty Surf Fishing. Smitty is a Navarre surf fishing charter captain. If you're coming to the Navarre area and you're looking for a surf fishing charter captain for this zone, he is your man to contact. Reach out to him online, book your appointment. While we're talking about fishing, so we've gone into the planning phase, and this is also this other question I know is in another video. When you get to the beach, so you're there with the cart, you've walked up the access, and now it's time. You're looking up and down. What are you looking for to set your rods up?
Usually I can sum it up with this, and we get in. I'm going to plug something here if you're okay.
Plug it.
But this was a heavy topic and something that we broke down in depth in the Salt Strong beach fishing mastery course that we just filmed, which is a big reason why I have these massive raccoon eyes, if you can see them, because I couldn't cover my face because my face was on camera the entire time talking through this stuff. But this was a huge focus in the course, basically answering that question. Like, when you walk out on the beach, what are you looking for? Mm-hmm. And we give it's not just one beach that we do this on. Like, we give like, we fished in the week that we were here, we fished like 6 different beaches.
Nice.
It was intense. Yeah, it was intense. And we break it down everywhere we fish and why we're fishing there, what we're targeting, and what we're looking for. But the course will be out hopefully in a month or so once we get it edited and released. I would encourage you, anybody that's looking into that stuff, like, I promise you won't be disappointed. Like, we get drone footage. We obviously have the on the beach footage, and we break it down so in depth. It'll be worth your time and money. But if I could sum it up, I would say the deepest water closest to the beach. In general, number one, I'm always looking for the deepest water that I can access with the shortest cast. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to that. To answer that question, there's a lot of different ways that you can do it, and depending on species and how you're fishing. But if I'm set rig fishing, I'm always looking for deeper water. Even whiting, pompano, or whatever. I mean, that holds true. Whatever, if it's a set rig style fishing and it's a species I'm targeting that way. Even if it's not necessarily like, there were some beaches that we fished that it wasn't necessarily the feature that attracted me to a spot as much as it was just the bar happened to be closer to the beach, and it was as simple as an answer as I could just cast over the bar in this section, whereas I can't in this section without wading out. And if you fished this past week, wading out wasn't much of an option unless you want to die. So that was that really sums it up for me. Is just you typically finding the deepest water closest to the beach.
You bring it up, and I shouldn't do this, but I'm gonna. Did you see the Facebook post or any of the social media where the guy was wading out during that stuff, and he got pummeled?
I thought that was Tony. What? Not Tony Fishgum, but Tony Chipman. Wasn't that a picture of him?
I don't know if it was Chipman. I mean,
was it not? It was just some random person.
I love Tony. He's funny. I just talked to him not too long ago. Now I'm gonna have to call him after the show. I was like,
I thought it was him. I thought somebody posted it and tagged him
was
it was him. But maybe not. I don't know. I thought it was Tony. I thought we knew the guy. Like, I didn't think it was some random person.
If it was Tony, I mean, he landed gracefully, but the dude, I mean, no, I feel bad because I'm like, what happened?
Maybe it wasn't. I'm not sure.
I hope it wasn't. He's such a good dude.
I did see a picture though. I did see that.
Okay. So back in where we were out there. Yeah. Oh, I really hope it wasn't him. Oh,
not advised though. When conditions are like that, not advised.
And when it's a double red flag, the important thing is there's laws that say double red flag, stay the hell out of the water for a reason.
Yeah.
Please don't go out there and do that. And not to mention, I mean, whoever it was, well, let's just say it wasn't Tony. I'm just gonna. It wasn't Tony. Somebody else. uh, whoever it was, I hope they're okay, and I
Yes.
hope they wash their gear out. So you've mentioned zone fishing, and your mastery course. I know that that's going to be in there, uh, and you've stressed its importance in all of your videos. But the question I never really, or I haven't heard you answer, because, and the reason I'm bringing this up, I promise I'm getting somewhere, is I believe in our world of fishing, everybody stands on everyone's shoulders with education. We take something from someone, we take that knowledge, we use that knowledge, we build on that knowledge, we mold it to our own style of fishing. But it's always important from that knowledge to where we are. Where did you pick the zone fishing up? And I guess that's the biggest one is where'd you pick it up and how to do it?
The, I have always tried to give credit anywhere, like anything that I learn from anyone, because I learned a lot from Dusty Hayes, a lot.
He is a smart dude.
Very smart. I hired him when I was first starting to try to get into YouTube and chartering and all that. I hired him, and that's how I met him the first
Okay.
time. I hired him as a surf fishing guy. Chris Veche, another huge name in my education as a fisherman in this area, and even like when I went to Mexico, Chris Veche, I go and speak with him because he knows. Like, if you ever need to go catch an arapaima in the Amazon, I guarantee you Chris Veche can tell you how to do it. Like, he will know the timing. Like, he will know every aspect of what you need to do and how to target it. Like, he just is a wealth of knowledge anywhere in the world, but especially here. I continually try to give credit where I gain information. The zone awareness stuff was something, and something that I formulated in my brain because it was, everybody's obsessed with reading the beach, which is huge, like so important. When you learn and are comfortable with walking out on any given beach and you can see structures and you understand what you're looking at and where fish are generally going to congregate, your success will skyrocket. But when I was guiding, uh, what I learned is even standing on the beach and trying to teach people this in a guide session, it just wasn't happening. Like, people weren't getting it. People can't see what I see from a morning or an afternoon of fishing. They're not going to gain that information. So the zone awareness thing was something that I tried to come up with, that I'm like, look, okay, this will work for anybody. Anybody can learn to do this, at least, because the in a perfect world, you know how to read the beach. But if you don't, what you can do, and even if once you learn to read the beach, it's still a good practice to do this. But if you can't read the beach, walk out on any stretch of any given beach, and if you have multiple setups, just put them at different distances. Then you're at least covering different depths and different areas where fish may run. If you just walk out there and haphazardly throw your baits in the water as you're set rig fishing, yeah, you can catch fish. Yeah, that works. But there is a little bit more strategy to that in figuring out where these fish are going to run. And another mistake that most people made, while I observed on the beach, was people just casting too far. And like when I was when I was heavy into charters, there were so many times where we would be catching fish and people around us weren't. That's not the case as much anymore. People are way more educated on this stuff than they used to be. I ran into surf fishermen very rarely for a long time, but they would not be catching fish and we were. So I'm like, I know these fish are on this beach. Why are they not catching fish? And a lot of the times it would be because they're wading out neck deep and they're trying to cast their baits to Cuba. And I'm standing on the sand, like flipping a bait out and catching pompano, So I learned that, like, okay, if you don't know how to read the beach, if you don't understand what you're looking at and trying to find these depth changes, just stagger your baits. Like, don't just walk out and cast every bait to Cuba, because look, even if you're going to miss so many fish, because on my charters, I would say probably 70 to 80% of the fish that we caught, not pompano, but fish in general were within 10 to 15 yards from the beach. I will confidently say that because we caught so many whiting, so many redfish, black drum, flounder, trout, all of that stuff is 10 to 15 yards from the beach. Now, pompano, yeah, in most cases, they're going to be a little bit further out in most instances. But even still, we'd still catch pompano in that zone a lot of the time, depending on the beach and the beach structure. So you're missing so many fish by casting too far. So that was my big thing was like, look, don't just cast in one place. Stagger your baits, put them at different distances. I promise you're going to catch more fish. And you can figure out patterns. You know, you can pattern these things. So, because if you don't know what you're looking at, that's the best I can give you. The best information is just stagger your baits and go from there.
And the first 50 feet, I think, is overlooked.
Always. I mean, not always. I mean, people are, I think, more familiar with it now. But, you know, for the longest time, because number one, most people didn't even know you could catch fish at the beach. Number two, if they did, they thought, oh, you got to have your baits all the way to freaking Cuba and in that really, really deep water that's really, really far away to catch fish. But that's just not the case.
No. So while we're talking rods, so we've talked about the zones. Do you prefer? Well, let's back it up because this one's good. What is your typical rod setup, and how do you set them up? By that I mean rigs, bait, sinkers. How is your rod set up
For set rig fishing?
For set rig fishing.
Yep. It's changed over the years. What I would do if I'm serious about surf fishing, how I would run my charters. I'll give you that. When we go out, like I have to catch fish, okay? Because now, like obviously, I have to catch fish for my job, but I do things differently now, and I'm a little bit more pinpoint focused on what I'm targeting because I have an idea for a video and whatnot. I'm not out there just to catch fish. Sometimes, but rarely.
Right.
But when I was chartering, from a recreational standpoint, this is how I run my charters. I would run 4 or 5 rods. Most of the time, I would have 2 rods, steelhead rods, light tackle rods set very close to the beach. And those were considered targeting whiting.
Right.
And we'd pick up redfish, we'd pick up black drum. So I would run 2 single drop, what I would call whiting rigs, where I just basically a dropper pompano rig, but just 1 drop with a bead or nothing, and just a piece of shrimp with like a 1 ounce sinker and like 10-pound fluorocarbon. I'd have 2 more setups that I would use as my pompano rods, which is like kind of your standard surf fishing setups, whether it be a 10 to 12 foot rod, whatever. I've always used 10 and 11 foot surf rods. I used the 11-foot daggers for many years, and I would put double drop or single drop pompano rigs. A lot of the time while I was guiding, I backed away from the double drop rigs and mostly just used single drops because
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was agreeing.
I know why. But single drop pompano rigs just because it used less bait, and a lot of the time I was using naturals. I would use synthetics with the Fishbites, like I would match it on there. But a lot of the times when I was guiding, when I could, I would use ghost shrimp because it's like cheating. And
it's like a layup bait, man. It works.
Yes, and when you're fishing ghost shrimp, you don't need 2 drops. You just don't. I mean, you can double up. I mean, you can catch 2 fish at one time, you know, whenever that would happen. But I would try to conserve bait because, you know, it wasn't always easy to get ghost shrimp. I didn't want to be putting out 4 ghost shrimps when I could only put out 2 and still catch fish. So I would use single drops or double drops. So for pompano, and then 1 more rod, I would have ready for cut bait if I wanted to go that direction to put out a cut bait, or if we're just whacking pompano or we're whacking whiting or whatever it is, whatever our focus needs to be, I would transition that 5th rod to one or the other direction, just depending. So in general, like that's how any given day I'm going to walk out and would set up a surf fishing charter. And most of my charters and you know, if you're out there just to catch fish, most of my charters turned into whiting charters, which is why I get this persona that, like, you know, I'm the whiting guy. But that's because, you know, when you're running trips, you got to catch fish. Yeah. Whiting are fun, especially on light tackle. They're delicious to eat. You can fill a cooler if they wanted to do that. and then you'd have a couple of rods out for pompano and or redfish, and all of those would just be a bonus at that point. You want to keep people busy, you want to keep people catching fish. I was always confident most days that I could walk out and do well with whiting, just to make sure people are catching fish and feeling good and having a good time. And then, oh, by the way, here's some pompano, and that just makes things all better.
Okay. Yeah. So you got a good sets there. So there you go, everybody. Huge piece of knowledge. Hope you were paying attention.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you're running surf fishing charters. You are a whiting fishing charter. You will have way more success if you focus on whiting, and then everything else is a bonus. Promise.
So now you've moved on quite a bit from set rig fishing, and we talked about this a little earlier. And nowadays, with your current fishing style, because we know you're not doing the charters anymore, you went full time YouTube, full time fishing on that one, and that's your current path. You prefer now? Do you prefer set rig fishing, or do you prefer throwing lures more now in the surf?
Absolutely artificials.
Okay.
Definitely prefer that. It's more active. I enjoy walking the beach and opportunities that throwing big poppers for redfish and jacks and sharks, and like that's why I was so drawn to Cabo when I went, because that's their style of surf fishing. You're not going to walk anywhere around in Cabo and see anybody using a set rig. You're just not. Like, everybody out there is throwing huge plugs, and that's the style of fishing that really just gets me jacked. One rod, throwing lures on the beach for something big. Of course, set rig fishing is a huge part of what I do, and I still love that. But I get so much more satisfaction out of throwing a lure and tricking a fish and getting them to eat something, and especially on top. I mean,
got them.
Yeah.
So when you're going out and you got the set rigs, you got your set rig set up. How many rods do you keep in the cart as lure rods?
If I'm set rig fishing, just one.
Okay.
I'll have a spoon, and generally tied on, because everything eats a spoon. I mean, anything that swims by, whether it be Spanish, bluefish, jacks, redfish. Like, if there's a schooling fish that comes by, I can throw a spoon and they're going to eat it. If they're fired up. That's the absolute best. I mean, obviously I throw poppers and jigs and all kinds of different stuff, but if I am set rig fishing and want to have something in my cart ready to go for anything that may swim by, it's a spoon.
What's your normal rod setup for that? Do you have one specific rod this is my lure rod that's coming with me every time I go to the set, or do you alternate it? What's your go-to rod for that?
Yeah, I use two. It just depends. Both work great. The one that I use for a long time is a Star Paraflex, 10'6" Paraflex.
Mm-hmm.
Great casting, and I can put a big reel on it, and it still balances well, whether it be a 55 or 6500 reel.
Yeah.
And then I use a lot now. I use the bummy stick. That's a lot of what I use for throwing artificials. It's an easy, lightweight rod. It can do both. I mean, if you want to set rig fish with it, you can. But it really excels, in my opinion, at throwing artificials. And so generally I'm going to have a spoon tied on that, whether it be an ounce or a 2 ounce spoon or a popper or whatever. It casts all of that stuff great and handles big fish just fine. I've caught sharks and jacks and all kinds of stuff on it. So those are the main two, though, I don't really. I have enough rods that I can set rig fish with everything else that I have. You can set rig fish with a Paraflex and or a bummy stick, but I only use those for throwing lures personally, just because that's just what I have them set up for.
Well, you and Ninja Tackle came up with a really good rod for it. I mean, the bummy stick is a great stick and very versatile.
Yes, that's what I love about it. Yeah.
You've been traveling a lot. I mean, even in this area, you still travel. You're not, it's not, hey, I'm in this one spot, this one beach all the time. You're moving around quite a bit. And you've done international. We know that. You've got the Cape coming up here pretty soon, which I look forward to hearing and seeing about that with the stripers, because I know the season is, believe, starting or has started.
It's very early. When we will be there, it'll be very early.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Where has been your favorite destination thus far? Fun one, huh?
Yeah, no, I've gone to a lot of cool places. I mean, because man, that's a good question. I would, if I had to point to one, if I had to pick one, I would say Outer Banks so far. Just
Ooh,
yeah, it was just I loved the so that we did obviously set rig fishing is a big thing there, and that's what most everyone was doing while we were there was because there were a lot of drum tournaments, and most people were set rig fishing with Carolina rigs, basically for drum. And we did some of that, but most of what we did was throwing lures, and that's like I said, my favorite thing to do, and that's how I kind of associate the East Coast and Northeast Coast. Like I feel like that's where that area of our country really excels is the opportunities you get at throwing these lures in the surf for false albacore. You know, they get their albi run, what they call it. You know, they get huge Spanish mackerel, they get giant bluefish,
monster.
they get the stripers as you get further north, which you know is what we're going for in Cape Cod. They get the giant fluke, all these fish that are incredible targets for artificials, and uh, I just picture that when I picture that area, that's what I envision, and that's what we did on that trip primarily. Like that's where we found our success was throwing medals for the Spanish and for the bluefish and for the false albacore. And just this fact that you can, it I can see the pros and the cons, but you know, you can drive on the beaches there in the Outer Banks. So that was cool from the standpoint of we're a half a mile down the beach. You can see explosions happening or birds working half a mile down the beach, and it's like hop in the truck, let's go.
Nope.
And you can be on them, you know, that's what was so cool. Like the first day we were there, we're half mile down the beach, and I see all these huge explosions like next to the sand, and it looks like I didn't know what it was. I thought it was huge bluefish at the time, but like it looks like Jack Crevalle are just going ham on some bait over here. And so we tear off down the beach, get down there, and find out it's false albacore, and which that was my first experience catching bonita or false albacore from the beach, which was amazing. Like such a cool fish to catch. Not good to eat, but it's a lot of fun to catch, especially from the beach. So and the whole experience altogether, like I took my family, my family's there, they loved it. It's such a cool area. Most everybody in that area is there to fish when they're vacationing. Obviously there's other things to do, but the vast majority, and there were a lot of tournaments going on at the time, but like I liked that vibe that the people that were going there were there to fish, and the fishing was exceptional in my opinion, and that was just a cool experience for my family. Just the area, they liked doing some other things, but it was cool, man. I think that I would say number one. But I've been to some cool places, I've done some cool things, but Outer Banks was really special.
Well, if you think that one was hard, now it's going to be this one should be kind of easy then, almost.
Okay.
Where do you really want to visit to fish, and what is the I want to catch that fish? I need
Okay.
to catch that fish.
Yeah. So there's two places that I have to go. Number one being South Africa. So if you've done any research whatsoever on South Africa, the crap that they catch from the beaches there, it'll blow your mind. They catch these fish. They're called cob is what they call them down there. But they look kind of like a trout, but they're literally like 100-pound to 150-pound trout, like just stupid. They're huge. I mean, like there's pictures of like full grown men like doubled over with a fish that's taller than them touching the ground. I mean, just ridiculous. They catch a lot. They catch some pompano species down there too. They have like blunt nose pompano. They have some permit species. It's not the same as our permit, but they kind of look like that down there too. They catch some other weird stuff that I don't even know what it is. That just looks awesome. But there in Australia, I mean, I definitely want to go to Australia at some point in my life and fish from the rocks there. You know, they catch tuna and just stupid stuff. But of course, GTs, you know, they catch GTs in Australia from the rocks. Bluefin trevally. I don't know if you. I follow some guys that fish over there. I don't know if you have you ever seen one of those in a picture or video. The bluefin trevally, beautiful fish. You know, do what?
I have to look it up now.
Yeah, you should. I don't have any fish mounted. I am getting a replica mount of the pompano that I call it the PB pompano. But if I don't care what size the fish is, whenever I catch my first bluefin trevally, it will be a replica mount. Like they're just a beautiful, beautiful fish. They have such cool colorations on them, and they're in the jack family, so they're probably closer to like a GT than a jack crevalle. But as you know, and as I've already said, jack crevalle are my number one fish. All of these fish are just its relatives, and I just want to catch them all. And the bluefin looks the coolest. So, and they can be caught in Australia. So that's a big trip for me.
Perfect. There you go. All right. So the good news is this: you're almost done.
Yeah, well, I'm having a great time. I'm good. I mean,
I am too. I'm kind of like, we could do this for a while. Like, apparently, you and I are good at talking. Who knew?
I know. Yeah, who knew? Just make our living that way.
Yeah. Why do you think that surf fishing has become so popular?
Two reasons. One accessibility. It's the easiest to access from anyone. You know, so many people for years have always come down, and even when we would vacation here, you'd see people with rods in the water, not catching anything really, but you'd see people trying it. It's just accessible, it's cheap, and then number two, social media. I mean, social media has grown so many industries. It's not just fishing and just surf fishing, but it's been a huge role in shining a spotlight on surf fishing, especially in this panhandle area, North Central Gulf Coast. It's exploded. When you think about the businesses centered around that, people work full time now. They have full time legitimate businesses that they've built around this sport, and just go. Many of you, if you weren't surf fishing before all of this, you wouldn't know or get to remember these times. But I mean, there were times that I could go to some very popular beaches in our area in the middle of April and maybe see one or two people surf fishing. That's just not the case anymore. It's definitely exploded, and I would say just the fact that it is accessible, and number two, shining a spotlight on that accessibility and possibilities of what you can experience through social media.
Nice. True story. And it's cheap-ish.
You can make anything expensive, but
yes,
you can start this extremely cheap.
So I love that you opened with that too, with the accessibility piece, but also the financial, because that's one of the fun ones as you get into year two. You're like,
I need this, I need this, I need this.
Yep.
It gets surprised.
What do you wish that a new angler would do before they ever put their first line in the water? And the good news is I have a follow-up to this, so it's going to be
okay. If I pointed to anything, I would probably. I'm an understanding person. If I see somebody doing something stupid or out of line or whatever, I'm not even going to say anything. Like, I just don't care enough. It's not important to me. But probably etiquette, maybe just trying to ask questions more about etiquette, and not so much about, because time on the water and educating yourself on the sport and how to catch fish is obviously important, and you're gonna get that with time. Yeah. But the more that you can educate yourself on just etiquette and a culture, the better. That's tough though, because I don't really know where somebody would look to unless they have somebody they respect in that, and mainly because problems that we run into with surf fishing specifically is only going to become problems for all of us if we don't manage it properly. Yeah. And what I mean is, the run-ins with people on the beach, with the swimmers and the fishermen, rules and regulations will only continue to become more if we don't approach things and can get along with each other. And these things, just like with Florida, I mean, that's not solely due to fishermen, but with Florida making the law changes where, you can't be on this section of beach, it's private beach and all, like those things will only be continue to become more of a problem with it if we can't govern ourselves, what I mean? And be cordial with each other. The more people that you tick off or this or that and the other, it's only going to tick off the wrong people that bark to the right people and cause more problems for all of us.
Good points. Great points.
Etiquette.
Etiquette it is. Okay. What gear would you recommend for a new angler?
Something brand new to surf fishing.
Brand new to surf fishing. Because the reason this question came up, and I'll tell you about it in the green room because it's funny how it came about.
Okay.
We all start somewhere. You could start at the Walmart combo and you might be fine. You could also walk in and go grab the $300 rod at the store and the Van Staal. You can go as high or as low as you want. But I think a lot of people, and this is why this, I guess, is more coming out, is a lot of people don't know where to start. If they just want to go surf fishing, where to start?
Yeah. I answered this question in so many words a lot earlier on when people were finding my channel and trying to get into the sport. I probably still get this question a lot, but as I explained, I don't check my messages anymore. So I probably have it all the time. I just don't see it. But
you can answer it.
Do I?
You can answer it now without having to type.
Right. Here we go. Right here. I'm answering it now. I did tell people to get, like, the one that I would always point to was the Penn Pursuit combo.
Oh, good starter.
Because it's not that much money. Obviously, you don't want to put a ton of money into something that you're just getting into, but at the same time, you don't want to get just complete total trash. Because when I first started surf fishing, I used $20 and $30 reels from Walmart that I bought, and you get exactly one trip out of that reel. So you can try to go cheap, but it's only going to end up costing you more money. And that's when I made the decision to actually go buy something more expensive. Was I'd gone through 2 or 3 of those reels, and I'm like, I'm spending $20, $30 every time I want to go fishing because it would lock up. And I didn't know at the time to even spray stuff off. I don't know how much that would have helped with these particular combos because, I mean, you're getting all that salt water on your line, you're reeling your line in, that just puts that salt water in the reel. So even if you don't dunk the thing, something that doesn't have some type of protection for water getting inside the reel, it's going to lock up 100% of the time. So when you get those $20 and $30 combos, they're just not built for that.
Yeah.
So I would say, like the cheapest, because I like Penn stuff. I think Penn stuff for reels, especially, are perfect for beach fishing. They're built tough. They're built for that. Obviously, you still don't want to drop it in the sand and water and stuff, but they can withstand all that and still perform. So Penn Pursuit is always what I pointed to, and just going and finding a combo, which a lot of times you can get that at Walmart, but or a tackle shop. But anything that I think, like their combos, I haven't looked at them in a long time. Can you get a 10-foot combo?
In a Pursuit or in jet? I think the Pursuit. I'm laughing because I know Justin's going to watch this and he's going to remind me of what happened to my Pursuit. I don't have it anymore, really, unfortunately. I believe mine was either a 9 or a 10. But
yeah, see, I don't know if you can get it. If it exists, I haven't looked at this in a long time, but if it exists, I would say a 10-foot Penn Pursuit combo with like a 5,000 size spinning reel for
nice.
Start there if it exists. But if not, something 9-foot with a 5,000 or 6,000 size reel.
Perfect.
Because I mean, you can get that. You can get those combos for like $80 or something.
Yeah, I know we have them here in Half Hitch, and you can see some good ones there. The shops have some good ones, but I always tell people, go to the tackle shop. The tackle shops aren't like the tackle shops when we were kids. It's not, hey, I'm going to sell you the Van Stall. The tackle shops on the local one, they know if you're a tourist, but
Right.
they're not going to sell you something just to make a budget. They want you to be successful because they want you to come back. They want you to have a good experience. So it's not a horrible thing to go talk to them and figure, oh yeah, hey, maybe this will work for you. I mean, that's just in my experience with the 4 we have in this region. I've had nothing but great experiences with them, and they don't know me from Adam, so it's even perfect. I'm just there.
Yeah.
I say talk to them. All right, final question.
All right.
Give me a big one.
Do it.
What's next for you, bro?
There's some things we're working. I can't really honestly say.
I know you can't.
I can't disclose some of this stuff.
A couple you can, but yeah, I know a lot you can't. But what? Give me a little taste of something that you feel that, hey, this is going to be fun.
What's next? I wish I could talk about some of this stuff, but we're just so early stages on some of these things that we're working on. But it is exciting. In general, I'll speak generally. So I want to be a goal that became a goal as I started this journey. I wanted to be I wanted to be seen as the face of surf fishing. Like I want like that's been the goal of mine. I wanted to try to achieve that. Because when you think about surf fishing, there's not really anybody that you associate with it like that really stands out, unless you're in the industry. I mean, there are some big names like Larry Finch and even Rich Padulich. Those guys are bigger names. John Skinner, on the Northeast Coast. Steven Jansen and Cabo. I mean, like once you kind of get in the industry and you follow this stuff, like of some guys that are kind of big names, but like even somebody that doesn't know anything about fishing knows who Bill Dance is. Like there's just a transcendent level of being associated with a brand, or somebody that's never even watched basketball knows who Michael Jordan is. Like those types of those things. So I've wanted to try and achieve that, and which is why I put so much time and energy into everything, and which is why I try to say yes to as much stuff as I can, like this and what we have coming out with Salt Strong. Like that's a huge step for me in that direction. In this day and age, and that's going to be coming out here in the next month or two, but in this day and age, with that type of information and the way that we're delivering it, it's almost as if I'm writing the book on surf fishing, that information coming from Salt Strong. And those are the things that I want to be associated with and continue to grow. With that, we've got some things that we're trying to launch with it, but I can't talk about those things because I don't want to disclose any of that information at the time. But soon, stay tuned. Hopefully we'll get there soon enough and everybody will know. I promise.
That's awesome, brother. I really appreciate all the time that you've given me and anyone watching this. You've dropped so many nuggets of huge information for knowledge, and thank you for giving us a glimpse into your life and a lot of the things that you do. Sincerely, I appreciate it, and I've really enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's been a great time. I enjoyed getting to meet you the other day, and I was excited to be a part of your podcast. If you'd love to have me on another time to talk about anything, I'd love to join.
Really, you're just gonna let me have the layup? I thought you were gonna like slap me down later and make me feel really bad about everything I did. Because yeah, I definitely want you to come back, man. This was too good to not do another one. And unfortunately, I know a lot of you have been making comments. I do see them. Unfortunately, this was going to be the episode that wasn't going to be comment related. We will possibly work on something later where we might do a Q&A. We'll discuss it offline. But hey, we'll definitely chat. We will chat again soon. But don't go anywhere. I will. I'm going to bug you after this.
Okay. So I'm staying in the green room.
Yeah, if you don't mind. I have grapes and cookies because that's how I roll.
Nice. Thank you.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
Yeah, buddy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the show for tonight. Thank you for sticking around this entire time. I hope that you were able to get some form of knowledge out of this whole thing. I know I did. I've got plenty of notes. Thankfully, I'm going to go back and listen to this. This podcast is going to be downloaded audio only and dropped to my Transistor page, and it will be shared out this Friday, so you'll be able to have the audio back. And it's on social media forever now, so you can go back and look at it and watch it. Watch my happy face with Matt's. So it's going to be fun. All right. Thank you so much for all this. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. It's going to help somebody out. That's the most important part, and that's the goal that I have here with this podcast, is to help at least one person, because that's what matters. You all take care of yourselves. You've been listening to Finding Demo Surf Fishing. I'll see you.